Hey everyone, welcome back. It's been a while. Today I'm going to show you how to build this stock fundamental dashboard using Streamlit and the IEX Cloud API. And so what this dashboard is going to allow you to do is enter in a stock symbol and it'll pull more information about a company's fundamentals. So I'm going to start off with a simple overview page, which just shows the company name, sector, logo, description, CEO. And then we're also going to pull in fundamental data. So you'll be able to view the different ratios, such as the PE, the profit to earnings to growth ratio, price to sales, price to book, revenue, cash, and a couple of indicators. And also I'm going to show the quarterly filings and the dividends. And we'll also be able to pull in some news information. So pull up the latest news for a particular symbol. And the reason I'm going to do news is because some people have been asking me about Discord bots and news alerts so that they can get notified of news and place trades very quickly based on the news with things like FDA approvals. So I want to talk about news a bit more and drill down into that topic in future videos. You'll also be able to track the stock institutional ownership. And also I'm going to go into some technicals with some other data APIs. Now you might be asking, why are we talking about fundamentals all of a sudden? And why are we going into a new data provider when we've been using Alpaca and Polygon.io integration in a lot of the projects in the past? Well, if you've been following me on Twitter, I mentioned this. So if you scroll down, I mentioned that, as you know, if you have an Alpaca account, previously with a brokerage account, you got this Polygon.io data for free, which is actually a pretty expensive monthly data service that you can subscribe to. And this was actually a really good deal because you got a brokerage account, an API, and you got access to this Polygon data, which was actually pretty expensive. I think you got the equivalent of this $200 a month account here, $200 a month account. And so you got this with your Alpaca account. So that was a really good deal because we could, this is kind of a one-stop shop where you could execute trades for free programmatically using an API, and also got this nice data source. But recently that has changed, and some of these agreements have changed, and so this is no longer free, and Alpaca is now offering this pro access for $49 a month, where you get this 100% market coverage for US stocks. Now, while $200 a month is pretty expensive if you convert to Polygon.io, but $49 a month, it's not a trivial amount of money, and that may be a lot of money depending on how much you have to invest and whether or not you've really tested any of your strategies. You might not want to commit to $49 a month yet. And so what I wanted to do is go ahead and go into some alternatives. And the other reason I would like to talk more about the Alpaca Data API v2, however, not all the endpoints are even done yet. As you can see, they've made this switch without much notice, and you see this bars API here is currently in progress. This isn't even done yet. So this is currently in public beta. So, do you really want to pay for this yet? $49 a month to test this out, and find bugs in it possibly or whatever. So it's not even done yet. So I feel like I have no choice here but to explore some alternatives to Alpaca in this case. And, there's a lot of posts on this on the Alpaca forums. And, there's not enough responses here to make me think that this is something that's ready to go yet. So this seems like a sudden move that something changed with their agreement that's a little bit worrisome, I would say. So what I wanted to do here is start going into some alternate data providers. And so the ones I'm going to talk about, there's this article on Hacker News, 6 stock APIs to use in 2021. And so I thought I'd talk about all of these, and it shouldn't take us very long. We've already gone over how to use APIs and how to use requests and all of that. So I wanted to do a quick rundown on all of them and test them all out, see what their strengths and weaknesses are, compare them to what we got with Polygon.io and Alpaca. And so I'm going to talk about 12 data. I'm going to talk about IEX Cloud, Alpha Vantage, and if I can, in Trinio and Zignite. I think in Trinio you have to talk to a salesperson or something. So we'll see if I can get access to that or if that's worth it. But at least these 12 data, IEX Cloud and Alpha Vantage, we'll spend some time on, since it's very easy to get an API key for those, and they're pretty cheap and have some free tiers. So this 12 data API looks pretty promising. Another reason I'm going to be looking into other APIs and also going to be discussing fundamental data and other data sources a bit more is that this company, Numerai, actually sent me this book and told me about their trading competition. So they sent me this Advances in Financial Machine Learning, which is a pretty cool book that I've started reading, and I need to level up my skill set a bit to be able to apply the concepts in this book, but I hope to share some more on machine learning with you as I get stronger in that area. That way I can compete in this Numerai competition. So this is something I've been interested in as well, and also tweeted about it. So follow me, Part-Time Larry, on Twitter, and I talk about things like this, and I'll mention stuff from time to time. So I'd like to get more into machine learning and learn how to compete in this competition. So I'm going to make some videos on that in the future. But in order to compete in this competition, you need to use as many data sources as possible. One thing, and I might do a book review of this, but one thing is that to compete in this, you want some unique data sources. And so you're not just going to enter this and use open, high, low, close data that everyone else has and win this competition. You need to use a variety of data sources, including possibly fundamentals, but also alternative and social data sources. So you need to dig a little bit deeper. And so what I want to do is start exploring some of these other data sources, including IEX Cloud, which I'm going to talk about today, because it has a variety of other data sources as well that we can take advantage of. So once we get this IEX Cloud API key, you can see they have these premium data sources such as fundamental research, stock, twits, sentiment data, value engine, audit analytics, this Kavout score. Yeah, there's this brain sentiment indicator, and there's all these different data sources they provide. So in addition to your typical price data, historical price data that's provided, IEX Cloud provides a ton of other data, including all the fundamental data that we're going to use on this dashboard. But with our API key, we'll also be able to get this other data, all this fundamental data, all these alternative data sets, a lot of market info, streaming news we'll be able to use. There's currency data, commodity data, economic data, tons of stuff here to explore. And so I would like to start going into IEX Cloud and see what it's capable of. And after I cover IEX Cloud, I want to go into 12 Data, who provides a REST API and WebSockets. And I also want to talk about Alpha Vantage and see the pluses and minuses of each of these services. So that's enough talking about what we're building and why we're building it and the different data sources involved. Let's go ahead and start with the tutorial and code this thing up. All right, so to get started, the first thing you will need is an IEX Cloud API token. And so to get one of those, you need an IEX Cloud account, obviously. And so you can click sign in, sign up, register an account as usual. So create an account. And when you create an account, you'll get a free account that gives you a certain number of credits. So you got 50,000 credits here. And so they kind of get you hooked, right? They want you to start using the API, get you a certain number of free API requests. And then after a while, if you really like the service, then you upgrade. And so I have this type of account because I've been using this to grab some fundamental data. And so you get 5 million credits a month, which should allow you to build something pretty substantial. And then as you scale up, let's pretend you want to build the next, M1 Finance or Robinhood app or whatever and build your whole business on top of this. Then maybe you want to get a business account over time, but that would probably take you a while to get to that point. And so that's pretty expensive, $199 a month. But if you're building a huge business on top of this, then maybe that's worth it to you. So I recommend starting with the free account, seeing what you'd actually use, whether you like it or not, and then upgrade if you want to use it more. This gives you 5 million credits a month. This gives you 50,000. And so what'll happen is you'll use API requests up, and in the console, it'll show you how many of these credits you've used. Some of the more premium data services they provide actually use more credits. So there might be one that uses 1,000 credits just because it's really valuable data, I guess, where there are some really cheap endpoints that don't use up many credits. And so that's all variable, and you can see that information in the dashboard. And what I'm going to show you in the video following this one is how to save on credits, because what you don't want to do is get charged for these API API requests and credits over and over again when you just refresh the page and get the exact same fundamental information, right? So when you request quarterly earnings data, for instance, that only changes 4 times a year, right? And so there's no reason every time you refresh the page to keep requesting that data. So I'm going to show you how to use Redis in order to cache API responses in the next video in order to reduce the amount of credits you actually use. So yeah, go ahead and sign up, get an API token if you want to follow along. So when you log in with your account, you should be able to see the number of credits you're using. And so I've been hitting the API quite a bit because I was testing a bunch of things out. And also I was starting to build a Discord bot and some other functionality. And this will break down how much of each request you're using. And so you can see I've hit the fundamental data source number, the endpoint a number of times, balance sheet, institutional holders, advanced key statistics, and those all use a certain amount of data. And you can also see I've hit this crypto streaming API and a bunch of things. So company logo looks like it's a cheap request. So I'm hitting a variety of endpoints here. So you'll want to go to this API token section. I'm not going to show you my API token, but if you click on API token, you should be able to copy your API token, and it's going to start with an skey underscore, and we're going to put that in a config file. And so I have Visual Studio Code, and I have a folder called IEX dashboard here. And in here, I'm going to put config.py, and I'm going to say IEX API key equals, and it's going to be skey underscore and a bunch of random numbers. And I'm going to do that behind the scenes and edit that out. And I'm also going to hit the play button here, and this starts my virtual environment. So I have this Visual Studio configured to activate my virtual environment that has a number of packages installed. And so for this tutorial, we're going to install a number of packages. So we're going to use requests. So I'm going to do pip install requests, and I'm also going to be using Streamlit. So I'm going to install Streamlit, which I talked about in full in the last video. In case you want to check that out. But you should be able to follow along very easily. So Streamlit's very easy to use. So I have a config.py, and I also have I'm going to create a new file called dashboard.py, and I'm going to import Streamlit as st. And I'm going to import requests, and I'm going to do st.title fundamental dashboard. And let's see if we can run this. So I installed Streamlit, so I'm going to do Streamlit run dashboard.py, and let's see if this loads up. Okay, and it loads it up, and you see we have fundamental dashboard. You see Streamlit makes it very easy. It's just like writing it out to a web page, and we can build our dashboard on top of this. And we're going to create a little sidebar. So I'm going to do sidebar.write. And so I'm going to put data on sidebar. And then if I do that and I do a rerun, it says data on sidebar. So we have our sidebar ready to go. So we don't want it to just say data on sidebar. We're going to actually do an input. So I'm going to do st.sidebar.text input, and we want the label for it to be symbol, and we want the initial value. We're just going to use Microsoft. So I'll do value equals Microsoft, and I'm going to do always rerun so that it runs every time we save. So if I change this value to Apple, click save, you see how this page automatically refreshes, right? And so if I do symbol equals st.sidebar.text input and do Apple, what I can do here is in the main section, I'll do st.write symbol, right? So whatever I put in here is going to get assigned to a variable called symbol, and I'm saying write that symbol variable to the main area here. And so what I do here is I do Apple. If I do MSFT, that's MSFT, Netflix, and so forth, right? So I have my input, and that's all I need. The next thing I'll do is add the dashboard selector here. So we're going to do a select box. So I'm going to do screen equals, so I'm calling these screens. So I'm going to do screen equals st.sidebar.select box. So I'm doing a select box, and I'm going to say view, and I'm going to do a tuple here. And so I'm going to have the overview and fundamentals right? I'm gonna do news. I'll do ownership. So I'm showing institutional ownership and insider transactions on this screen. So ownership, and I'll leave one called technicals that we're gonna fill in when we do the 12 data API video. So I'm gonna do this. So now if I do that, you see the view and we have a drop down here. So very simple, right? And so we'll say screen equals whatever we put there. And so what we'll do is do if screen equals overview, right? We're going to do one thing. And then if screen equals fundamentals, we're going to do something else. Okay, so we'll do pass for now because we don't know what we're going to do yet. And then also, regardless of what it is, I'm going to do sd.title screen. Okay. Actually, we'll do let's do st.title screen, and let's get rid of this fundamental dashboard one, right? So we'll do it like that. I'll get rid of the symbol, right? So whatever view I select, we'll see that at the top of the screen, so we know what page we're on. And so what we'll do is whenever we switch between screens, let's go ahead and call the IEX Cloud API to get the appropriate data we need to render that screen. So when we're on overview, we'll request company information, including the logo, the description, and the CEO. And I know that's not very interesting data for trading. I just want to start simple and get more and more complex over time as we build this thing up. So let's check out how we make a simple API request using the IEX Cloud API. So I'm at my console, and at the bottom here, we have the API docs linked, right? And we see a whole bunch of endpoints. And if I search this page for logo, you see there's one called logo here, and you can see we're making a GET request to stock / whatever our symbol is / logo. And they provide us an example and a response here. So if we click this REST how-to right here, we can see how to make a basic API request to the IEX Cloud API. So let's say we want the stock quote for Apple stock. We can copy this, right? And so I'm going to place this in overview. And so I'll do URL equals and put this in quotes. Okay. And then I will place this, my API token. So I'll import config, and in my config, right, I'm going to import my API token. And so instead of that placeholder, I'm going to make this an F string, and I'm going to place config dot IEX API token. Okay, so I have my IEX or API key right there, and I'll call it token. I think token is the word they use. So I'll do API token, and I'll call it API token right there. And yeah, let's see if we can make a request to this first. Then we'll do the logo. So I'll do r equals request.get URL and print r.json like that. All right, so when I ran that, you see that I get this API response. So it has the simple name of Apple and a bunch of data in there. So let's go ahead and get the logo instead, because that's what we're looking for. And so I'm going to do stock / symbol / logo instead. So if I print that out in the console, you'll see we have a logo here, and that's has a key of URL. And so what we can do here is say response JSON equals r.json, and then let's do st.image, and we'll do response JSON. And you see the key here is URL. And so I'll do it like that, URL, and look at our dashboard. And you see we got our big Apple right there. So we have our logo, and we've made our first request to the IEX Cloud API using our API token. And just like that, this is going to be super simple. Now that we have that pattern, we can just plug a bunch of endpoints into this pattern and start just printing this data to our dashboard. All right, so let's go ahead and add a few more API requests and start making this more interesting. So first of all, you can see this is showing the Apple logo, and it's not using the symbol that I typed in. So let me go ahead and substitute in here a placeholder for symbol. And when I save that, you'll see it pulls in Netflix. If I pull in Microsoft, it'll do the right thing. Let's try one, Verizon, VZ. All right, so we have our different logos coming in. There's Alphabet. There's Lulu. Let's see, Lululemon. Cool. So we got our logos coming in dynamically when we're on the overview screen. Let's go ahead and fetch a little bit more information about the company. And so if I go back to the IEX Cloud documentation and you scroll down to company here, so you go down to core data, you got company, we got this stock symbol company. We should be able to get this type of response with a little more information about the company. So I'll take this endpoint here and put it over here under overview. And let's just go ahead and copy this again. This URL equals, instead of stock/symbol/logo, we'll do /company, and it'll be the exact same here. And you'll notice that's very repetitive, right? So we're going to abstract this out so that we don't repeat ourselves, since we're going to make a whole bunch of calls to the IEX API. We'll go ahead and make a class with some functions, some methods that abstract this away. That way we don't have to repeat this string over and over again. And so I'll do r equals request.get again. And so let's repeat ourselves one time, and then we'll start building a class. So I'll do r equals request.get. So I'll do response.json again equals r.json. And then, yeah, let's print our response.json to the screen. So if I look at my dashboard now and request that, let's see, stock symbol company. Okay, so I'm going to st.write that to the screen. Let me do st.write like that. And you see it'll dump the JSON onto my Streamlit dashboard there. So we get Lululemon. So we have the company name, we have the exchange, we have the industry, the website. So we got a lot of information here. Let's go back to Microsoft. You see that's the example I did earlier. So we have the logo. And so let's go ahead and use the company name. So I'll do st.write and I'll do response. So I'll do response JSON company name. Okay, and then let's do the industry so that we can get some sector type data. So we'll do industry. Okay, I'll do industry, and we can do the CEO, whatever we want, whatever data you're interested in. So I'll do response JSON CEO. Do that. Invalid syntax. Okay, so I had extra parentheses. Okay, do that. And I don't need the response JSON anymore. Cool, so let's just do that like that. We can also do the description, response JSON description, okay? So that's some information. So let's add a little bit of formatting just so this looks a little better. So instead of just write, I'll do st.subheader, okay? And then I'll also do another subheader for the description. So I'll do st.subheader, and I'll just do description, st.subheader industry, and then st.subheader CEO. Okay, do it like that. That looks a little bit better. And let's divide this up into columns. So we want this text to appear to the right side of the logo. And so with Streamlit, what you can do, this is actually a beta feature, even though this seems pretty basic. So I do column 1, column 2 equals st.beta underscore columns, and I give the number of columns I want, and then I can do with col1, I'll put what I want in column 1. And so since I want the logo to be in column 1, I can take this st image and put it here, and then I can do with column 2, and then indent this out, and that'll put that information in column 2. Okay, and key error URL, let's see. And so you see how I called these both response to JSON. That's not very good. So what I want to do, I'll do logo equals r.json, and then I'll do logo URL. Okay, and then I won't repeat myself. And you see I have two columns that are evenly width. I have the logo and then the information over here. And then the way in Streamlit you can divide this up and say I want this text to take up more space. I can say I want this to take 4/5 and that to take 1/5. And so what I can do, instead of beta columns like that, I can do, I believe I can do 1, 4 to control like the aspect ratio, like how much each takes. So this is like one column, and then this takes up 4 units of space. So it's like a wider column. Okay, and that's my overview page. So that's pretty simple. Okay, and so the next thing you'll notice, I mentioned that this is a bit repetitive since I have this exact same URL pattern, and we're going to make a ton of requests to the IEX API. And so what I'm going to do is create a new file called IEX.py. Okay, and inside of this file, I'm going to start building out a simple class. So I'll do import requests. And there's a number of ways to do this. You can just do functions, or you can just build a class like this. So I'm going to call it IEX stock. And what it's going to take is a stock symbol and a token, and it'll just set up this class. And then I can just call different methods. So I instantiate this class, call a bunch of methods to retrieve all the information for me. Okay, so my constructor here is called init, and we're doing some object-oriented programming here. Nothing very complex though. There's probably a number of ways to organize this. So I'm going to, in my constructor, say when I initialize this object, I need to give it an API token and a stock symbol. Okay, and I'm going to say self.base URL. So I want to abstract out some of the commonalities here. And so I'm going to say the base URL here is cloud.iexapis.com, like that, /stable. Okay, and so that's my base URL. And then when I make a new instance, I'm going to say the token equals token and the symbol equals symbol. So self.token equals token and self.symbol equals symbol, right? And that'll set me up. So I'm always going to be using the same API token and whatever symbol is passed in. Okay, and so to get the logo, so let's make a function to get the logo. So what I'll do here is copy this part, and let's just make these functions. So I do get logo self, okay, and I'm going to do URL equals, and then instead of typing the same URL over and over again, I'll do self.base URL, base URL, and then we'll have /stock /symbol, and that'll be self.symbol. Okay, and then we always need our API token, so we're not repeating it. It's defined once there, and then we just get whatever our URL is, and then we return r.json. Okay, return r.json. Likewise, we can take this exact format here for getting the company info. So we just create another method called get company info self, right? And then same thing. So we're just going to have this pattern defined here and use the same API key and symbol for this IEX stock. Okay, and so this is company/company, right? And it looks just like that. Okay. And so now, instead of these, what we can do is logo. We can create an instance of this IEX. So when we start up our dashboard, what we can do at the top here, we'll do, or after the symbol, we're going to need it after the symbol. We'll do a stock equals IEX stock. So we'll do from IEX import IEX stock, right? So we have IEX.py with the IEX stock class defined here. And so we'll create say stock equals instance of IEX stock. We'll give it our API token, and we give it whatever symbol the user entered. So we have this instance of IEX stock. Instead of doing this stuff, we just do a stock logo equals stock.getLogo, and that'll have our logo information. And then we do company info equals stock.getCompanyInfo. Okay, so we're just using simple function calls now. Okay, so we're going to get both of those things. So we have logo, and then we have this. We'll just do company info, info, and company info. Okay, so exact same thing, except we're going to encapsulate all of our different calls in here. Okay, and we don't want config.api token, we just want the self.token here. So we'll do self.token, and that'll be our pattern. Let's see if that works. Okay, cool. So we're doing the same thing. We refactored this a bit, and we just have these function calls. And we can make that even more abstract. There's probably better ways to write this, but I think that's nice and simple, and that'll work. I just didn't want to repeat the same URL and token over and over again in our main code. I wanted to separate this out into another file. Okay. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the overview part. And so what we're going to do is have this exact same pattern, and I'm going to shortcut ahead a little bit so that we don't need to, I don't want you to have to watch me type the same pattern over and over again. So you can see I have this advanced stats endpoint, very similar. Certain URL structure gets us the total cache, all the different ratios that we discussed in the demo. And I can just make another method here called get stats self and do the exact same thing. So do that, and then I can do slash advanced stats. So I'll do advanced stats like that, and I still get my token, and then same pattern. So let's go to fundamentals, and I'll do st.write, and I'll be writing out whatever I get from the stats endpoint. So I'll say stats equals, and what do we got? Stock.get stats, right? So stock.get stats, and I'll just write out the stats, and let's see what that looks like, right? So if I go to the fundamentals page now, you'll see I get this nice dump of the different stats, and I can format this out. So I can do, instead of just writing all the stats, I can do st.write stats with the key of total cache, and then I could give it a let's give it a subheader of total cache, right? Okay, and I do it just like that. And so that's the total cache for Microsoft, and I could switch it up and go to Netflix and get the total cache. The other thing I'll want, you see how there's, some companies have billions of dollars in cache now, and so in Python, if you want to put the commas there to make it a little bit easier to read, I have this little helper function here, and so I look this up, and so I'm going to create a helpers.py, and let's put a format number, and you can copy this, and what this does is add commas to the number so that's more readable. And I'll go to a dashboard.py, and I'll do from helpers import format number, and then I can do format number total cache, just like that. And you can see now I got these commas in here, and so I can see that $8 billion in cache, and you can see Apple's $76 billion in cache there. And so what I can do is write out all of these numbers. And so what I did in the demo is I used a bunch of different endpoints, and rather than type this all out, I'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit and show you the code. And so I'm going to post all of this in GitHub. So I'm going to copy this. I have a copy that I'm going to push to GitHub. And so I'm going to paste this code in, and so you can see what I would do if I type this out. I can get the company info, get the company news, and so this accepts a parameter, so I can show the last 10 news articles. I can show the different stats. I can get the fundamentals for a particular period. So what I did is add a function called getFundamentals, where I do a quarterly period, and I wanted the last 4 quarters. And so this accepts some of these functions I added, accept a number of parameters. I wanted dividends for the last 5 years. I wanted institutional ownership, insider transactions. And so whatever endpoints you want, you can just add them to this class. And yeah, very simple URL format, and it inserts the token for you, and you just call them in the dashboard and print them out. And so what I have done, you can see if we forward ahead, I can show you the final version that I demoed earlier. And so let me go ahead and run that one real quick again. So I'm going to do Streamlit run here, right? And so I have a version here running that gets all of this in advance. So what I did was take the overview, got the fundamentals, and I just wrote all of that data from the advanced stats out in columns. I got the quarterly data, right? So I got the quarterly data, and I just use st.header, st.subheader, st.write to just write all of these out to the screen, and st.image to write any of the images out to the screen. So now we got this news feed, we got the fundamentals, we can link directly to the articles so that we can read the news in more detail, so wherever the news come from. So that comes from CNN, and we can read the full news article, set alerts on news, that sort of thing. And then I got the ownership data, so you can see Vanguard's ownership. And then I also have the insider transactions, so you can see when Satya is buying and selling or getting stock grants and that sort of thing if you are interested in the insider buying. Yeah. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to like type all this out since it all follows the exact same pattern, and the dashboard is just going to call the API, use this class, and write that data to the dashboard. So what I'll do is link down below, and you can download all this code from GitHub. So the final thing I want to mention before I go is, as I pointed out earlier, calling these API endpoints uses a certain number of credits in IEX Cloud, which can be costly, right? Because they give you 5 million credits. And so if you're building a large system on this, eventually you'll use all these credits. And so what I want to talk about next is how to use redis as a cache. And what this allows us to do is take any API responses we get and cache them locally in memory. That way, when there's another request to our web application, we don't have to turn around and hit IEX Cloud again to fetch this information. We can already have that data in cache, and we can just serve it right back up to the user from cache, which is not only saves us money, but it's also faster because we don't have to make another network request, right? It just comes from our memory, and we just give it right back to the user. And that's why a lot of websites can be super fast, because all the data that's stored in cache can be returned very quickly. It doesn't need to hit the disk, doesn't need to make network requests, and so forth. And so in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use Redis in your application to cache data. So thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.